Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Chichester Chats, the 50th episode of the Chichester Chats. I am Phil. Lilith is here as always. Almost done.
I feel like we should have been having this at the Kennedy Center, but that's all gone. So we'll do it here instead.
We'll do that for the 100th.
There you go.
Exactly.
So yes, as you know, again, Dan Chichester has to be here every episode because then why would we call it this? And of course, again, I wanted to do something big for the 50th episode. So we've got another gentleman who I don't know why he puts up with us so much. It is Mr. Jam Dematteis. Hello, sir.
Hey, well, compared to Dan, I've never been on the show, right?
Yeah.
So what have you guys been talking about for the other 49 episodes?
We talked about like some of his older works. We've been talking some of his newer stuff recently. He had a book out recently, so we talked that last episode. So yeah, once a month we get together and talk about something old or something new from.
Did you talk about the old Epic Comics days? Have you talked about that?
We did talk about that a little bit. Yeah,
we haven't probed on that too much. It's essentially a therapy session, for me, Mark. I mean, it's kind of like, they've made me actually have to go back and look at things that I never looked at before and gain a sort of a new view and even a new.
It's interesting, isn't it? Especially when you're answering questions about stories that are really old that you don't remember even writing. You know what I mean? Sometimes I find myself, someone will ask me a question about an old story and I'll give this really detailed answer and realize after the fact I was thinking about a completely different story.
That's the way to do it. Yeah.
And then you realize, when you see these interviews with like Paul McCartney talking about something he did 60 years ago, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Because how could he possibly remember, Oh, yeah. Well, we wrote that on a Tuesday afternoon, and I remember precisely this happened and that happened. And although we were on LSD, I remember it perfectly, right?
There are moments, though, you sort of, and you're probably misremembering them, but you sort of like have that acuity of like just, oh, yeah, I do remember being in that coffee shop or like, holding that particular.
You remember I kind of remember the emotional essence of things if I don't remember the details, but it's hard. What were you thinking when you wrote that in 1986?
Oh, yeah.
It's like
they brought up one story I didn't even remember writing. So it was like, at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. It's interesting.
Well, there goes my plan of asking about old comics. All right.
No,
I've learned to fake my way through it over the years, so it's okay.
All right. Well, I was going to bring up because, again, you guys have written, the biggest one that came to mind to me was you've both written Daredevil, but I know we've talked a lot about Black Armor Daredevil here. Lilith likes the credit that we helped bring that miniseries in. We put the idea in the Marvel's head, be like, hey, we need a new
absolutely.
Series.
I'll give you all credit.
Yes. So I was going to ask you, Jam, if you remembered writing Black Armor Daredevil in this issue of Amazing Spider-Man from 1990, was it 94, 95?
Sure, I remember. No, I know. I know it exists. I know I wrote it. I think it had. I think I do remember. This was with the owl and the vulture, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. And that led into the whole story where Spider-Man was dying because the vulture, I think, poisoned him and all that. Yeah, I do remember that. How about that?
He goes to Matt Murdock and be like, "How do you kill your alter ego?" Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. I do remember this one. This one is not like, oh, did I do that? No, I do. I actually remember this.
Like, do you remember? Were you reading Daredevil at the time, or did you do your?
I might have been writing Daredevil at the time.
You might have been writing Daredevil at the time, right?
Yeah. That's probably why he was in the book, because I was writing Daredevil at the time. I would guess.
See, there goes my memory. I was like, I read these over and over. I'm like, oh, was this when he was writing Daredevil? I can't remember.
What was the date on this issue? December what? December 90.
Was it like 95 or something? Or
95.
97?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Here, let me look this up. Yeah, because it is like, is that like early Clone Saga? But yeah, I was also going to ask you, it's like, And again, it's one of those things where it goes from Amazing Spider-Man to Spectacular Spider-Man, back to Amazing, back to Spectacular. So I think you co-wrote the story with, I believe it was Tom DeFalco.
Tom DeFalco, yeah. That was the period when all the books were generally interconnected, and every month was sort of a 4-part story, which didn't, for my money, I didn't always enjoy. It was really, really fun to get together with everybody in a room and work out a story, and then you went home and you wrote chapter 2. You know what I mean? And it was sort of kind of confining, especially when you want, I tend to write spontaneously, and it happened a few times where like, oh, I just had a great idea and I changed something and I've just screwed up the next guy because I've had this wonderful idea. But it was just me and Tom. And I think the other 2 writers were working on a story of their own that month. So with 2 people, it's a lot easier to do that than it is with 4. And also, when you have 4 people in a room and every writer is different, and this is really true about all stories. You can all agree on a story, but everyone goes home, and that story comes out through the filter of their experience and their personality. And so writer over here writes that chapter that you had clear in your head, but it's completely different than anything I would have written or that the next guy would have written. So even though we all agree on what the story is, it really comes out very differently when you have 4 different guys executing that story.
Yeah, that seems like it was a big skill you needed in the 90s, like Marvel, DC. It's like, yeah, if you're on like Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, anything like that, it's like you have to be part of this basically group collective writing an ongoing story almost.
Yeah.
If you got along with the people, I think that was, in my experience in doing a couple of those, one with, Fabian and Chuck Dixon, and then, another one with Greg Wright and, Mark McLaurin. It's the same thing, Mark was saying just a second ago. You get in, you jam on it, then you go home and you pick up your batons that you've been passed and you go with them. But if they're people you're kind of agreeably agreeing with, it's fun. It's kind of fun to. I always found
the group, because most of the time we're alone in our room writing our stories. And so it was like a writer's room for a TV show almost. It was that sort of feeling. But I have to say, in terms of actually executing the story, I always prefer to be left alone and just go off into my little corner and do my thing. Although I really, especially on those books, we had a great group of guys, and we used to have a lot of fun at those meetings. We would really get out of control in a really good way. And we liked each other. We respected each other, which meant we were free to insult each other. It was, we got along really well.
I mean, that was, we've talked about it a little bit, Phil and Lilith, I mean, the 2 phases of Midnight Suns, the first phase was, again, the same, that same insult each other, have fun with each other, go and write your story. And then phase 2, it started to get much more into dictating, the story. Like, this is what it is. And, and you guys don't know what you're doing, so you're going to do this instead. And that's a lot less fun.
There was a certain point in comics where it suddenly started to shift from a bottom up, from the creative people, to top down, from things being dictated down to you. And it's a lot more fun when the creative people have just given their freedom to create the stories themselves without being
here's a hook, run with it. Or you come with the hook.
Exactly.
I mean, the Clone Saga might have been one of the biggest examples of the 90s jam, wasn't it? Because it's like, wasn't it only going to be like 6 months or something? But then
originally, we were going
to or something. They were like, it's selling so good, keep going. We
were going to do it in 6 months, at most a year, because it was running through 4 books a month. That's a lot of story. And so the marketing tail began to wag the dog, and it was doing. The myth is that it destroyed the Spider-Man books. That's bullshit. That was when the whole market was sinking, and the Spider-Man books held on for a long time. Love it or hate it, but it was because of the Clone Saga. People, and sometimes people read things because they don't like it, and sometimes they read it because they love it.
They want to hate on it. Yeah.
What I've discovered over the years, though, now, working in the business now with guys that were maybe 12, 13 years old reading those books then, and now they're grown-ups and working in comics, and this was their Spider-Man. This was the Spider-Man that they loved, and they love these stories. So it's always shifting. It's so impossible to be, at least for me as a creative person, with rare exceptions, to be objective about any piece of work. All you can do is do the best you can do, sail it out into the world, and let the audience make of it what they will.
Oh yeah. I mean, again, this thing, like the Clone Saga, got so much hate, but like you said, it kept it. Spider-Man and the X-Men were basically keeping Marvel alive at that point, right?
Yeah. And all those characters, came back, and they're all part of the Marvel Universe now. And, Ben Reilly, I think, is one of the best characters to ever come out of the Spider-Man books. So, and Kane as well.
Oh, yes, Kane, who you're writing right now in Spider-Man 94.
Right.
That's the continuation of the animated series, yes. Which I just read issue 3. That's the new one. Yeah, I like the kind of twist you did with Moreland and stuff. Yeah. And even the Aunt May stuff, I'm like, yeah, of course. Why aren't they doing this now? Like, what?
Do they even remember he has an aunt right now? So maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. That
we lost our side characters in modern comics, so it's kind of a casualty, unfortunately.
Well, like we said, I mean, we always talk about again. I don't think people get along enough runs to do any like major things with the supporting cast.
Or maybe that's just
nowadays
like the take on the millennials. We're sad and we don't have friends, so maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm still not. Maybe you understand that better, Mark. I never glean why people seem to want to just do like 8-issue runs and then they leave. Is it? I felt like back in the day it was kind of you wanted something, to
especially
track with. And
when I started out, it was like you'd be on a book 2-3 years. Some people be hanging. Yeah. We did Justice League of DC for 5 years, Keith and I.
Right.
Everything, because you can tell. It's basically, goes from a short story to a novel when you can stay on a book that long.
Absolutely.
And you immerse yourself in that universe and those characters. Yeah.
But now it seems, I don't know if it's an editorial thing or it's a talent
I don't know.
thing.
Also, it seems like everything gets rebooted or they get a new number 1 every 5 minutes.
That's
or
a gimmick.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it seemed like for the longest time, they keep rebooting to a number 1 when you get a new team. But now sometimes they reboot and they're not even changing the team. Yeah, like you have like the same writer, and it's like, well, why are you
get the number 1 issue? Right.
Yeah. I think it's just survival. It's because sales drop off, and they know if it's a number 1. I'm sure if sales continued strong, they wouldn't do it. They only do these things because they got to survive. We may not like it, but it's all business decisions,
Yeah. Well, the newest, I get all that, but the newest gimmick I don't like is first they did it with Batman number 1, and now there's a new Daredevil number 1 coming in. Was it March, I think? But yeah, they're doing blind bag where you just buy a sealed comic book and you don't know what cover you're getting until you buy it, take it home, and open up the bag.
I'm gonna go ahead and sign the petition. That's gambling for children. I don't like it.
Right.
Wait.
Right.
You're buying
they're calling it the Daredevil blind bag.
Yeah. I think that's the new gimmick where it's like, you don't.
It's just like if you buy a gimmick toy.
I see.
You get all you get all these variant covers, and there might be like a special foil cover or something, but that's like probably 1 in 1,000 or something.
I see. Did you say they're calling it the blind bag?
Blind bag.
Yeah, they literally for Daredevil they're calling it the blind bag.
The Daredevil.
That didn't run through sensitivity training, but whatever.
Right.
Go with it. Run with it.
Oh
God!
I didn't pick up on that. Yeah, because they're doing a lot of stuff. I mean, for Daredevil, because I think isn't that when the second season of Born Again comes out in March? So there's a new number 1 coming out.
Is it?
There's a Daredevil novel coming out. Oh yeah, they're
Alex Segura's novels. Yeah, got pushed back.
Yeah,
to March,
I can't wait for that. Yeah. So yeah, they're pushing a lot of Daredevil in March. So, and they did it with Batman because they just rebooted Batman. So. And
blind as a bat, blind all works. It's all blind bags. So good. Okay.
Yeah, that's the only 2 I think they've done so far. So, all right, now, Mark, you can answer a question that's been burning in Dan's brain and our brain.
Really?
Well, when you were writing Daredevil for those. For these issues, did you get the mission statement? Be like, okay, by 350, we want him back as Matt Murdock. We want him back in the red suit.
I don't remember whether that was them or me. I honestly don't, and I don't think there was a specific "let's do it by 350" or anything. But what I was fascinated by, which always fascinates me, is just this guy who's had so many multiple identities over the years, starting with Matt Murdock and Mike Murdock back in the day, which, even when I was a kid was ridiculous, but fun, and I just wanted to kind of peel that psyche apart. And by the end, try to find a balance between all these personalities. And in 350, I guess it was 350. Yeah, it was supposed to end with him back in the yellow costume. If I was gonna stay on the book, I was gonna keep him in the yellow costume for a while, but they colored him in the red costume, and I had already left the book, so there was nothing I could do about that. But yeah, it was basically a psychological expert. What? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna say you like the yellow suit. I think it's fun, and it's like a
it was just a way to say we're going to change things up. It's comics. He would have been back in the red suit eventually, but I thought it was a great way to say this is not the same Daredevil anymore. He's moved on to another place now.
Yeah, I thought it was. I wasn't sure what they were doing because it almost seems like in the end there was two different scenes. One he was in the red and one he was in the yellow. So I wasn't sure what they were doing. And I think there was like an issue he guest starred in the Punisher in this era where he was in the yellow suit. So I think I don't know if that was a last minute.
I would assume toys, something toy sale.
Well, what I had in the beginning was the yellow suited Daredevil was showing up all over the place, and no one knew what to make of it. And Matt Murdock himself didn't know what to make of it, but he had split his psyche, so he didn't know that he was out there running around in the yellow suit. That's my memory, at least. I haven't read these stories in a long time.
And again, people always like doing things like this with Matt Murdock, like this story. I mean, Dan even had him as Jack Batlin. I mean, all the Frank Miller stuff. Ann Nocenti had him take a little journey outside of New York for a year or two. Is the appeal of the character where, especially back in like the 80s and 90s, he wasn't the household name of like, say, a Spider-Man, so you could do different things like that, like more outside the box things than you could with Spider-Man?
I don't know. I mean, I did conscious things. We've talked about that, to goose the sales. I mean, you want to sell the book. You're not trying to write it for, your three friends. And so, there are certain things that play out, well, that way. So, certainly shaking those things up. But that's also creative exploration, and that's editorial support. Annie wanted to tell certain stories, and by and large, I think Ralph supported, whatever she wanted. Ralph Macchio, the editor, supported whatever, she wanted to do, within limits. So she wasn't always interested in just, throwing people down the street. So that was an interesting place to go. And I think that's the ideal relationship, not just because a character is outside, say, the mainstream, and you get to play with it more in a way. You actually, as a creative person, want to explore things that haven't been explored before. So what is it like when you take a character like this out into the country? I always wanted, there was a time travel story, I think I mentioned to you guys at one point, I wanted to do, which, got nixed when everything moved around editorial offices. And I wanted to take him to old New York and just play with his senses there. Because here's a guy
what a cool idea. That's a great idea.
Isn't that fun? Like 18 whatever, 80s, whatever. And because New York was a completely different sensory experience then.
Houses, yeah.
So cool. What would his, this is a guy who's grown up and lived in New York and experienced all the modern day senses. Now you throw him into a place where the Hudson River is literally, the dumping ground for charnel houses, and, blood and everything else is in the air. And how does he deal with that? But that would have been, fun to do. And I think that's what you get out of a good editorial relationship, is you get a chance to play with things like that.
Oh, you should pitch that now. I think that's a great idea.
I'm trying.
Yeah, no, I really do. I love that idea. I love the Alienist. Have you ever read the Alienist?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I love that whole feeling of New York in that era. So I think that's a fantastic idea.
Thank you, man. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Why
is Matt? Oh, okay.
That's the whole point of this. Go for it.
Why is Matt Murdock the whipping boy of the Marvel Universe? This man has been through literal hell, quite literally, like back and forth. Like, what is the appeal of making him go through all that? Like, I just people like, I feel like when people say they want to write Daredevil, I'm like, oh, you want to be a sadist. You're looking for a character you can be a sadist towards.
Here, I'll answer that one. No, no, I think it was. Does it like come a little off what I asked, where it's like, I know, yeah, the creative choices, Dan, and everything, but it's like, are they willing to take more creative chances with Daredevil than say a Spider-Man, because that's the brand.
I mean, it is a running theme that
they're like, oh, you want
love
to
to
do
do
something
that.
different? Yeah, Daredevil.
I just want him to be happy.
Well-
I just want him to be happy.
Well, I mean, from the Miller run onward, there was always it was established that this is a book where you could get edgy, for one thing, and I never thought of Daredevil as a book over in the corner, because as a kid growing up, I read Daredevil the same way I read Spider-Man. I just enjoyed the book, so I never thought, oh, I'm getting on a second tier book here. Plus, it had a pretty damn good tradition with Miller and Dan and Ann, and
Oh, absolutely.
you know what I mean. So it wasn't like
motion-wise,
like back in the 80s when I was working on the Defenders, and no one was paying attention to the book. There had been some great people working on it in the past, but at the point I took it over, it really was it was kind of at the bottom rung, so I could do whatever the hell I wanted with it. It was a different kind of thing. But Daredevil, I thought of Daredevil as a major character, in fact, not as a minor character or off in the corner. And I don't know, I just was writing the story that I thought was interesting. That's as deep as it went for me.
Dan?
Well, no, I totally agree with that. And when I said second tier, I was talking more promotional,
Right.
Mark, than anything. Like we always suffered, from a certain degree of all the sales and promotion dollars, went to Spiders and Mutants, and you're scrabbling for that unless, say, Frank was coming back to do a limited series, but that was my bone of contention. But I just get back to the fact that you have an interesting character with a good pedigree, and you've seen people push it in different ways, and I've said this before, I think people rise to the occasion with Daredevil, with few exceptions. There are a few exceptions, where people just want to like slam things around on the street and whatever, throw them off water towers. But I think generally people see the opportunity, the conflict of the character, and they want to play it out in different ways. And you just then need the right support, editorial support, to be able to do that. And by and large, I mean, I had that, for even most recently, the miniseries. I mean, the Black Armor miniseries. I mean, they were very good. My one note was make him suffer, and I did, and I beat on him,
make him
and
suffer.
Make him suffer. But aside from that, all the notes were good. The support was good. I had no issues with that at all.
And the essence of a good story, I mean, you don't enter a story and the character's happy, and you exit the story and the character's happy. That's the character's always going to go on a journey. You could look at Peter Parker and say, why are they making him suffer so much? Because God knows he's been through hell, as have probably most of these characters. So I don't know if it's so specifically Daredevil. I don't know.
Yes, complication is the nature of what you want to do to the characters.
Right.
Oh, I think, I mean, well, it's like specifically back in the 80s and 90s. Like, I love Daredevil, but I always felt me back then where they were just like, well, we can't do certain things with Spider-Man because he's on children's clothes and 100 million different things. But if you want to take like a bigger chance, like making it more gritty with like Frank Miller and stuff with Daredevil, we'll let you do that. Because...
Well, to contradict that, I was working on Spectacular Spider-Man in the 90s and had freedom to tell exactly the stories that I wanted to tell, and those are pretty deep, dark stories that ran through those couple of years that I did with Sal on Spectacular Spider-Man. I think on Amazing Spider-Man, they wanted it to be a little shinier because that was sort of the flagship book. But I was given, I'm so glad those books just got finally collected this past summer after 150 years, But I was given complete freedom to tell really, really mature stories. And no one was saying, oh, it's Spider-Man, don't do that.
Oh, that's true, I guess. I mean, Kraven's Last Hunt, I mean.
Yeah.
Well, beyond that, Child Within, all those stories that I did with Sal were, all, they were pretty deep and dark in their way.
Yeah, rarely did I don't think I ever heard anything about, hey, this is going on a lunchbox. Don't play this out. I mean, that was up to them, and to suddenly decide they wanted to put, Carnage ripping somebody apart on a baby jumper. That's them. That's licensing. That's not us.
Mark your bingo cards. You just mentioned Carnage.
Yeah, please put I did that for you guys. Rarely. I mean, some people I'm sure have heard it, but I don't think I ever heard anything in terms of censor yourself, change the story if you're off base for what the character is. Yes.
Right.
I told you guys, one time I was writing some Hellraiser and Daredevil concurrently, and I sort of crossed the streams a little bit, and Ralph, brought me back to focus, and that was the right thing to do. But
right.
Wasn't
That's
it?
your editor's job.
It was too violent or bloody or something, and that's when.
Yeah, I just
Wait a minute, Carnage
kind
is
of
killing people and filling the
yeah,
streets.
I just dove in deep, and I made it, and it was extra grisly, and I was just obviously still firing on different cylinders, and he just needed to kind of course correct me, and the bones of the story were kind of there, but I put too much emphasis on the wrong things, and that's what, again, a good editor helps you do.
I was trying to think, has there been any project that you two have collaborated on together? I don't think.
Well, Dan, you were the
Sure.
editor on Blooded Tale at Epic.
Oh, okay.
You were our editor, weren't you? Yeah.
Mark was the scariest presence I think I ever confronted.
I hear these things from people, and I think you know what it is. It was back then. First of all, my hair was dark; it wasn't gray. Eyebrows and mustache. That's what it was.
You had the whole package. You came in with, well, first of all, it was the first thing that I was, given to edit, right? So it was a prestige project. I had just kind of graduated to editor. So it was you, it was Kent, Kent was Kent Williams, firing on all cylinders, but also very Kent, but yeah, you came in with, your reputation as a writer, which I respected. But yes, you came in with eyebrows, mustache, black leather jacket, and your sunglasses. So it was, and I don't think you ever smiled.
I did, but it was hidden by the mustache, and all that, and in my head, I'm just an insecure schmuck like everybody else, and I've heard from several people, you used to scare people back then. They didn't know.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I'm just walking around trying to keep my head down, being like, what I mean? It's so funny what we project versus what's going on inside our heads.
Oh, absolutely. But no, but I mean, that was a great project for me to work on, because I got to learn what I was doing and learn what I was doing on something that meant a lot to me, because coming out of the Epic, background, our duty, we thought, was to respect the creator's vision and to make the creator's vision the best it could be, both in terms of, if we felt something was off, but also the whole production of it. Our production values were at that time much higher than anything else in Marvel, and maybe anything else in comics. We were certainly, I think, leading a lot of stuff in terms of paper type, printing quality, working with illustrators like Kent. You would come off that, Mark, with Jay, you've been used to that with Moonshadow.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was the assistant editor on the second half of Moonshadow. That's when I joined Epic.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, Margaret Clark was the editor on that. So I mean, I don't think I dealt with you much, if at all, on Moonshadow. That was certainly Margaret's, baby. But Blood was, just powerful for me. So.
And then there was Archie, overseeing the whole empire there.
Couldn't
ask for anything better than Archie.
No, I mean, Archie was the protector and the sort of like North Star, and it's always been funny to me over the years, to go and talk to people who I like a lot on the Marvel side, at that point, and their whole attitude was so completely different. Yeah, if we want somebody off a book, we throw them on. We just tell them what to do, and it was so different for us, and even so different from the people we had trained who went into the Marvel, editorial mix, like Mark McLaurin and Greg Wright, and their kind of way they approach things. But yeah, that was, for me, that was really the first thing I full on edited, so that was a very meaningful book for me. So, not easy all the time. You were intimidating, but Kent could be a terror. I remember.
Really?
Oh, he was. Yeah, I think Mark Chiarello had to rein him in at one point because he was giving me so much like grief, and I was trying like everything. And Mark, I think, finally kind of took him to the side and said, like, he's pulling everything for this book, or doing his best. So give him a little,
Yeah,
kind of a little
I guess
slack.
I wasn't privy to that side of things. Yeah.
But
So like the Marvel offices were probably huge at that point, right? Where like you could like go for long periods of time without seeing certain people because now
No, not really. No,
no?
you'd stroll the
Hmm.
halls and see everybody. That was the fun for me in those days. You go up to the office, and I'd go from office to office and say hello to
right.
everybody, and sit with Gruenwald, sit with DeFalco, sit with Bob Budiansky, and whoever it was. Go over to Epic. No, that wasn't so big that everyone was lost in there or anything like that.
No. Yeah, the bullpen, and then the main editorial offices were all right off the bullpen, and then Epic was kind of around the corner, in a corner, and we, I think, had two offices, between the sort of the two groups who sort of worked across it, and then the rest of it was, well, there were some editorial offices, I guess, over past where the editor-in-chief's office was, and then the second floor of Marvel was business, business affairs, licensing and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, you could easily drift from one to the other in a very comfortable way.
Yeah, because I lived up a couple hours away. So when I came in, I was in for the day. So I would spend the day and
Yep.
visit with everybody, and we'd go out to lunch, come back, hang out some more. It was great to come in those days.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like another reason why comics feel so different today too, is because you don't have that. Because again, now I mean the talent pool's so big because you can pull from the whole world, with technology and everything. You can, but like nobody's sitting on a Zoom call for 8 hours a day. Just casually wandering over, like, oh hey, what are you working on, or what's going
Even
on.
email started to change all that, because before email, your editors would call you. And sometimes if you're working on a project, your editor might call you 3 times a day, and you really built up a relationship. And then
That's a good
email
point.
once email established itself, I've had editors that I've worked with that we never talked on the phone. It was all through email, and it's so important. Like Danny Chasm, who I've been working with on all these Spider-Man miniseries, he picks up the phone and he calls and we talk, and we built a real relationship. And that's really, really important because that also builds trust.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that was a real thing. As you said, they call several times a day, and you'd really get to know folks. Or
Yeah.
when I was an editor, getting to know folks that way. And but there was a talent pool then, Phil. I mean, I worked with a lot of the
Oh
Brits,
yeah.
we were pulling in Mobius, we were pulling in, uh,
Was that
Otomo
like an
and Akira.
initiative, or like they just saw it and they liked it, or was like an initiative to actually like branch out to like other markets other than the U.S.?
What do you mean? Where we would get talent from?
Yeah, like was it like a decision, like maybe we should pull
Oh,
from some.
Archie, as Mark said, I mean, he was our secret weapon at Epic, and so everybody wanted to work with Archie, and Archie was open to almost anything. So Archie would specifically, go to a show in the UK or France or whatever, and he'd come back, and we're doing these projects, and that was great. It was a chance to draw from that talent base and suddenly put some stuff out there that people probably would not have seen otherwise.
Yeah, and same thing at DC. Before Vertigo, Karen Berger was DC's British liaison, and she used to make trips
Right.
over there, cultivate talent. Yeah, yeah.
So do you guys, well, I think I'm sure this is probably a yes. So like you guys, when you work with, like artists or whoever, you prefer the phone conversations and everything. And again, I don't think it's a conscious choice anymore. It's just probably the
You
nature of
have
the
Zoom
business now.
now. Well, before that, Skype.
Yeah, but like I say, you're not just like wandering around.
It depends. Sometimes you're on an assignment, and you haven't chosen the artist. They choose the artist, and the train takes off, and you don't necessarily have time to chat with somebody and get to know them. And the odd thing is sometimes you never talk to somebody, and you have instant chemistry with them anyway on the page. And other times, when you get to, when I'm working with artists, obviously that I've worked with before, that we're choosing to work together, it's a more one-on-one intimate relationship. But again, even back, I feel like, maybe in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot more of the phone conversation thing going on. And now, especially if you're jumping in on a mini series, you're in and you're out, and everything's being done through email and that kind of connection. Back in the day, whether it was Mike Zeck or Sean McManus or whoever I was working with, we got to know each other and we all became friends. Not all, obviously, not everybody. Some people we didn't get along with, but there was more of a chance to connect that way.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's go ahead.
I'm just going to say that on an ongoing book too, if you got the same writer and artist on an ongoing book, the longer you're on that book, the more of a chance that you're going to make that connection together.
Mm-hmm. And it but it also very much is where people are and how they prefer.
Right.
I mean, I feel I've got a really good relationship even today, with Netho Diaz, who I did the Black Armor series with. But he wasn't comfortable with English, so we talked extensively, on Twitter. Like, that's just how he'd send me long notes, I'd send him long notes. We go back and forth that way, and that was just the way he preferred to sort of communicate. And so I think sometimes there's language issues. People are more comfortable that way, but if you can communicate, it's better than just passing stuff over. You get to give people feedback, and people like to know that you like what they're doing, that they're on track, or maybe they're a bit off, and here's a suggestion, maybe where to go. The collaboration, can't be overlooked. I mean, that's really part of the appeal of comics.
Right.
Well, that probably is where technology actually helps now, because there's so many like language translation programs and stuff, and it's just like, well, what is it? What's this person trying to say? And probably helps with that. So a lot of times I'm like, technology is probably maybe not been as good for the process, but in that case, I guess it actually does. So I guess it's just adapting.
You can't be a Luddite, but you have to also recognize the dangers some technologies pose, especially in certain people's hands. So find balance.
Yeah, there are days I say to my wife, I just want 3 TV stations, a computer with no internet, you know what I mean, and a VCR. And I hear myself, and I just sound so old, But we're so overwhelmed by this technology now, and we see how some of it is fantastic. The fact that we're doing this right now, and I can see Dan's face after all these years. This is a great thing. But we see all the ugliness out there and how it's used. It's sort of like superpowers, right? Where you use your superpowers for good or evil, and this has the potential for both. And unfortunately, I think the internet, for all the good it's done, has really done a lot to sort of just degrade the discourse.
There's no question. I mean, there's no question. It's just the reality doesn't exist. Our realities are totally twisted by. We can both log on to Google and both search for the exact same thing, and we're going to get 4 separate results, maybe radically different, and that's, divisive, just based on what the algorithm wants to sell us. And that's probably the most minor version of how it went from weird and connected and good to sort of now being driven by all this other stuff.
Advertising dollars.
Yeah, well.
That's what it boils down to.
The shitification of the internet, as Cory Doctorow says.
And now you have AI muddying the waters even more. So
well, sure. I saw an M- and some stuff that Fabian posted yesterday, and I just accused him of writing with AI. So,
I was going to ask also, is it to be a successful comic creator, do you have to have at least one Batman story under your belt? Because I know, Mark, you've written a lot. Dan, you've at least written a Daredevil Batman crossover. So do you have to have at least one Batman story?
I don't know if it's required, but I think all of us as 10-year-old nerds in our souls, want to write Batman at some point, right? Everybody wants to write Batman.
I don't know if it is required, but it certainly was fun.
I mean, I always heard that. I didn't know if it was true or not, but I'm like, yeah, every comic, anyone who gets in the comics always has like at least one Batman story and one Spider-Man story in their head that, will they get to tell one day.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
Batman
Batman.
even more in some way. I think
Mhm.
Batman has an even bigger pull for people.
People
Just
just
to
like
be-
tortured people. That's what it is. It's an appeal there.
But again, those two characters, I think, people relate to them. And again, maybe Batman even more so just because he has no powers and, well, except for money, but just no powers. And everyone's just like, oh, with enough training and money, I could be Batman. Or
Yeah, no, you can't.
You're
I could have had
wearing-
all the money and training in the world. I would have never been Batman. Forget it. Nor would I want to be, honestly.
no, I mean, it seems like
I was lucky. I got to write 2 Spider-Man Batman crossovers, one for Marvel and one for DC. So that was really a lot of fun.
Did you find was that different from an editorial like direction? Did you get different sort of push and pulls?
Well,
depending on
the first
was
one
there
I
a primary
remember.
editor?
Yeah, the first one I remember, they basically said these are the villains we want to use. They told me who
Right.
to use, and they had to use. I think I had to use Carnage. Was not a character that I was particularly fond of, but I was writing
Mhm.
Spider-Man and Batman, so I'll find a way to make Carnage work. And I think the other one.
It was
I don't
Carnage
think
and Joker, I think. Yeah.
The Carnage and Joker was the first one. The other one was Kingpin and Ra's al Ghul, if I'm pronouncing that right, because I never say that out loud. And no, there was not a once we established the basics of the story, I was free. And even though it was going back and forth between DC and Marvel, and you get notes from DC and you get notes from Marvel, there wasn't. My memory is, I could be completely wrong. My memory is that there wasn't a lot, and I had a lot of freedom just to tell the story that I wanted to tell.
Cool. Okay.
But you're also Jam Dematteis too, so you have a lot of trust and faith in you too. So
maybe. Except on the days when it didn't work out that way,
Right.
Everyone, I always say, when they look at someone's career, especially someone who's been doing it for a long time, all they see are the successes. They don't see all the craziness that goes behind the scenes, or the projects that it took you 20 years to pitch before you could sell them, or never sell them at all, or the times the editor fired you, or whatever the thing may be. They don't see that. They only see the stuff that's out there. And a freelance life is always an up and down thing. I don't care how successful you are. It's an up and down thing. And sometimes the downs are way down, and then sometimes the ups are way up. And you basically have no way to control it. So you just get your surfboard and you ride the waves.
Right.
And and again, it's a business, but yeah, we weren't doing Marvel DC crossovers for like the last, I don't know, 20 years or so. Now they're dipping their toes back in the water. So are we going to be seeing a lot more Marvel DC crossovers maybe?
I hope so. They're fun. They're just fun. Dan, you said
are.
you did a Daredevil Batman?
I did Daredevil Batman back in the day. Yeah. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that was the first one. And then Alan Grant did, I think, a couple more after that.
Yeah.
But
Did you have
I mean,
fun?
they are fun.
Yeah.
I had a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, once things got out of the way, yeah, it was a lot of fun to do.
We're writing comic books because, as I said before, somewhere in our souls, this 10-year-old kid that just loves this stuff still as much as you did when you were a 10-year-old kid. So, you take a step back, and little voice in your brain goes, I'm writing Spider-Man and Batman together. And if you don't have that enthusiasm still, you shouldn't be doing it.
Right. Because then you're checking boxes and you're just, let's just make the machinery work. And there's no fun in that. There's no fun in that for you. And that's going to come through to the readers. It's going to be a flat experience. And what's the point of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's up to the companies. I mean, CB Cebulski and Marie, Javins, seem to have found a way to make what I thought would never work. I didn't see how they were going to get, these monstrous entities to cooperate, but they seem to have found a way to do it. So more power to them. And I hope people, embrace that and have fun with that, and that people just enjoy that. That's what they want. They want their characters to play in the same sandbox now and again. So go with it.
Yeah. Do you gentlemen think, is there any way they could ever come to like some kind of permanent partnership or with comics wise, or no?
What do you mean by a permanent partnership?
Like, cool. Could we get like a shared universe, Marvel, DC ever, like an ongoing thing, or no?
I can't imagine, unless, you know, although we live in this age where like corporations keep gobbling each other up, you know? So
Exactly.
maybe someday there'll be some massive corporate monster that will gobble up both Marvel and
Nobody
DC.
tell Jeff Bezos, please.
Right. Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
but
you've got Disney, buying Warner's. That would do it.
yeah. You know, but that would make my brain hurt. Like, I like keep them separate. I don't need that all mushed together, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, would you have to like restart both universes and be like, you know, and start everything from scratch? Be like, oh yeah, Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark went to school together, and all this.
Start from scratch. Comics never do that. Reboots?
No.
Don't call it a reboot. Call it a refresh.
A rebirth.
I mean, purists could, you know, I'm sure they would. It's kind of like what they're doing now. Like there's different variations on everything at this point.
Right.
You know,
That's true. That's true.
There's the Prime universe, right, which continues its continuity. Then you get your absolute Batmans, you get your ultimate Daredevils or whatever. You know, they've splintered it without necessarily saying they've splintered it, which is better, frankly, because
then you can just go off and write a story sometimes that has nothing to do with all that continuity nonsense. Yeah.
Right. Be true to the character, be true to the world, but just go and enjoy the heck out of it without worrying. Well, last year he was in this situation and he went down this aisle in this store when he bought his underwear, and now you've got him somewhere else. And okay, thank you for being obsessive.
and the great thing about these characters, I hate to use the word iconic because it's so overused, but these iconic characters, they can be bent and twisted in a lot of different ways. I've written so many different versions of Batman, from the ultra grim Batman to the Batman Brave and the Bold animated series. I've just been writing for the Amazon Cape Crusader series, which is sort of a 1940s film noir Batman. And I've written a very kind, compassionate Batman. I've written the kind of lighthearted Batman. And as long as you stay true to an essence of a character, you can bend them this way, bend them that way. And the more opportunities we have to do that, and just as Dan was saying, just tell the damn story and not worry about this other stuff, the better it is.
And again, yeah, like you said, the iconic characters, it's, there's room now for all these different versions, and you kind of have to do soft reboots sometimes because, again, just the amount of time these characters have been around, that, it's like now everyone's running around with cell phones. Somebody, Spider-Man and Daredevil, in the 60s, there were no cell phones, or even further back with Batman, there's no, technology changes, societal changes. It's just, it's always a kind of like a soft, we're not going to mention this reboot. And is that a little is that the challenge too? It's like, okay, so when do we kind of introduce stuff, or it's just like, no, just start it?
It's sometimes funny, it gets in the way. Go ahead, Mark.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, sometimes that gets in the way if you worry about that too much. Sometimes you do a slight nod to things to kind of like glide over it. But again, going back to that Black Armor series, which ostensibly was taking place in the 90s, but was Marvel 90s. He did a minor nod to cell phones usage, but I didn't really dive in deep to have everybody doom scrolling, or it was enough to sort of acknowledge the fact for a modern day reader to sort of see something they might be familiar with, but it wasn't an integral part of my story that I needed. So you pick and choose.
Right, that's exactly what I was going to say. I've done some of these Spider-Man series which have been set in the past, so you're always sort of just kind of trying to wend your way through that stuff, because it'll throw it off balance if I'm writing a story that takes place 2 weeks after Peter Parker became Spider-Man and people are talking on cell phones. It's gonna throw the whole thing off. So you have to find just the right balance.
All right, Lilith, do you have any questions for these gentlemen?
No, I don't think so. We've had a good conversation today.
Yes. Again, both busy gentlemen. All right. First of all, Mr. James Dematteis, thank you for joining us. Thank you for
my pleasure. My pleasure. I'm happy to celebrate Dan's 50th anniversary.
Thank you. How do we get the entire interview though, or the entire session, and not ask why we both go by initials?
Yes.
I figured it was an artistic
Oh, that's
choice.
true. We're in the initial club together. That's
We're
right.
in the initial club together. When I first started writing under that, they were like, "Oh, you're trying to be like Mark." And
That's
Steve
very funny.
Buccellato said that to
That's
me.
very
Yeah,
funny.
but anyway, there doesn't
Blame
need to be
J.M.
an
Barry.
answer
He started it, didn't he?
for that. He started it.
Oh yeah, I was all worried I was gonna be like trip over my tongue trying to say J.M. Dematteis, D.G. Chichester.
It's a lot of tongue twisting. Yeah.
That's very funny.
All right, so now yes, so we'll spend the next 10 minutes. Mark, tell us what you have going on. What projects you have going on right now?
What's going on?
Especially
Spider-Man 94 is out now. Got a couple other things cooking at Marvel that I can't talk about. Gearing up for the next round of the Dematteis, all those new books that we did via Kickstarter. I have a novel that should be out early next year called Dark Future. Through a company called Neotext. I've done 2 novellas for them, and now we've kind of crept over the line into a novel. Been writing for Batman, Caped Crusader, and there's just a Kickstarter that launched today called it's a fiction anthology that Bob Greenberger, who worked at DC for many years, is editing, called Thrilling Adventure Tales.
Oh, I just saw that.
And I have a short story in there as well. So that's enough.
So nothing going on. Yes,
nothing going on.
And all your Spider-Man, the collection of your Spider-Man issues with
there've been a lot of collected editions out this year. Dr. Fate got collected, all the Spider-Man stuff got collected, Hero Squared, the one creator-owned thing that Giffen and I did together, got collected. New editions of Moonshadow and Brooklyn Dreams, and they even collected Scooby Apocalypse, the last project I did with Keith. So a lot of stuff got collected this year.
Oh, nice. All right, and now for the man of the hour, Mr. Chichester. Yes.
Not quite as prolific as Mark, but that's okay because I got I'm happy with everything that goes on. So as you guys know, Risk is finished. 5-issue series is done. That's still available from Black Box Comics, and then the 3 other series that are coming, from them as well are still in the works and still in need of final decisions on the titles. So that's the Sword and Sorcery, which is going to be two series based on that now, each 5 issues, and then the Alien Conspiracy one, which they're still reviewing. I mean, it's a go, but they're reading the scripts and kind of going over that. But the those are tracking well, and then I've got something in Netho Diaz and I are talking about, but it's the Marvel pitch machine, so I have no idea where that's going to go. They didn't buy our idea for Ultimate Daredevil, and then lining up some shows for next year. So it looks like I've got knocking on wood. I'll be at 5 different Galaxy Cons.
I'm going to be at least 3
Which
next
one are you
year.
Gonna be at?
I'm going to be in Raleigh, Richmond, and New Orleans.
I'll see you at all 3.
Oh,
so
that's
I'm
fantastic.
at Raleigh, Richmond, and New Orleans, and then I'm going to be at Nashville and Oklahoma City. So I look forward to in-person reunion as well.
Wow. We can find some other people with initials, and we can all go out to dinner together.
We can have a club. Yeah.
Yeah. Galaxy Con. Galaxy Con. When you have a panel with these 2, you're welcome.
Yeah, they absolutely hopefully should. I mean, on anything. So that would be fun.
I'm actually going to Brazil December 1st for CCXP, which is
are you? Well, that's enormous, right?
Supposed to be like 3 times the size of San Diego or something insane.
Yeah,
like
I hear it's massive.
Yeah, Brazil knows how to do fandom.
Yeah, so I'll let you know how my nervous system is when I get back.
That's very cool. That's very exciting.
Yeah, they've treated us really, really well. Really, really well. I'm looking forward to it.
Dan, any updates on Axel's Infernal?
No, unfortunately not. I mean, I wish I had better news, but
you can just write them for us. We'll pay you.
Yeah, that might be very, very, very exclusive commission comics. But I keep saying I hope to have more news, but so far I don't.
I have to spend. I have disposable income, so just let me know.
Your 4 dogs would beg to differ, Lilith.
They're all set for this Christmas already, so.
Oh, gee, of course.
Oh, okay, as long as they're set, all good stuff.
But I feel like only in comics, Dan's like, I don't have that much going on. Meanwhile, there's like 3 series in the pipeline,
right.
and one came out.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
Good
comparing
life of a
myself to the man
freelancer.
next to me.
And
Well, who gets more? Who gets the amount of work he does? Dan, come on.
except when I don't. Going back to what we were saying
Well,
before with the freelance
Uh-huh.
life, you know what I mean? I've had periods in my career where things have completely dried up, and you're sitting there going,
Yep.
"How the hell? How am I going to pay the mortgage next month?" You know, it's just
Yeah.
it's the luck of the draw. I call it you're like tap dancing on quicksand. I always say when you're a freelancer, you have to tap really fast so you don't sink, and really well so someone will go, "Oh, look how well he dances. Let's hire him." You know.
Yeah.
And another weird thing, you know,
Mhm.
is that it doesn't matter how long you're doing this, people forget about you. They just do, and you have to remind them what you can do. And suddenly you get another project after it's been fallow for a while, and someone goes, "Oh yeah, I remember him. Let's hire him." You know, and then the next wave comes, and then, you know, so it's amazing to me that I've done this for as long as I have. I feel very blessed and very lucky, even with the dips over the years, that this is how I've made my living all these years. It's been pretty great. But I've had to do it by doing a lot of different things, by doing comics, by doing TV, by doing
Right.
film, by
Right.
doing books, whatever. Because you have to know when that door closes, you got to have another door open, because the door will
That's right.
close. The door will
That's right.
inevitably close.
And I mean, that's a credit to your talent and your, you know, your drive. But I think that mentality does allow you to continue to produce and exercise your creative skill sets, so that you don't fall into that sandpit, you know, of like,
Yeah,
woe is me, right? Because if you
yeah,
do have that empty moment in whatever platform, you know, you're working on, that's where you really get dragged down, I
yeah,
think, you know. But if
yeah,
you've got something you can turn, or I'm going to go do this now, maybe that's not as lucrative, or maybe there's only one project available for that at the moment, but it does keep you going.
exactly.
And that confidence and that charge, and it took me a while to learn this, but you know, that confidence and that charge um, gears you up, you know, to be able to approach, oh, I want to try comics again, or you know,
Yeah,
and feel better about it, and go in with a bit of swagger and a bit of confidence, because if you don't, then people sense that in anything,
right,
right?
right.
In anything.
Yeah, you have to be ready to open the other door, because I've seen
Yes.
situations in my own career where it's like, oh my God, at company A, and I'm so busy and the phone's ringing off the hook, and I have so many projects that I'm turning things down, and
Hmm.
then like Tuesday there's a new editor in chief or a new publisher or something, and all of a sudden the work just goes away because somebody up
And
the
you're
food
gone.
chain made some decision, and they
Yeah.
decided they don't want to use you anymore. So you never know.
Right.
So you really have to
Right.
be nimble. Let's say nimble. That's a good
Yeah.
word.
But the freelance mentality, I think, you know, I've learned this over time, I think, is, you know, serves you everywhere. You know, I've done and continue to do, you know, a lot of corporate marketing, you know, stuff over the years, Mark, and you know, I was on staff at various places, you know, in pretty good positions, but you know, one day they just decide they don't want you. So,
Right.
you know, you have to recognize that that's going to happen no matter where. And if you sort of adopt, I'm always a freelancer, wherever
No,
you
but it's
are.
true. And our entire economy is like that now. You know, once upon a
Yeah,
time, people would get a job for IBM when they got out of college,
absolutely.
and they worked there till they retired.
Yeah,
And it just
yeah.
doesn't work that way for people. So those of us
Nope.
that have been used to doing this for all these years, we have the
Right.
nervous system that's prepared for that. A lot of people don't
Hmm.
have that anymore. You know, they just don't, because they
So
thought
true.
they were going to just have a job, and that's what it's going to be. And it doesn't
Right.
work that way anymore.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Yeah, nothing's guaranteed anymore in the working world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We're all
Or the
freelancers.
podcast world, you know, so.
Oh yeah, you know something
Are
I
you
don't.
saying you're going to replace him, Dan? Is that what's happening here?
No, no, no. I'm saying, you know, I'm hoping there's a 50, you know, first episode, you know, but you know, if there is, that's great. If not,
Oh,
we've
there
had a
will
good
be.
run. So
So wait, before I go, is there going to be cake?
I know there
Oh,
should be cake.
yeah.
There should be 50 candles, you know, and then a big cake.
Uh-huh.
Oh no. I mean, next month, next episode will be for December. Dan, I was thinking if you're up for it, we could talk. I believe is it Terror number 8? That's the Christmas issue.
Oh, yes, the Evil Christmas issue. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
appropriate
I was
for
thinking we could talk
yes,
that.
perfect
Yeah,
holiday. It's either that or the Hellraiser Christmas Spectacular.
For the
But
Hellraiser,
we'll go with
I'm
Terror
okay with it.
Incorporated. So
That's great. That's great.
awesome. Mark, it's been delightful seeing you.
Yeah.
I look forward really
See
to
you.
seeing you in person.
Yeah, that'll be great. I think the first one is in March, the one in Richmond, I think.
I think that's Richmond. Yep.
Yeah. So I will see you then.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
And, yes, we appreciate both you gentlemen's time. Yes, thank you so much. And again,
Well, thank you guys.
You gotta get them back for that novel. I'm very interested in Dark Future. It's a time travel book. Spoilers. So I love
metaphysical time travel. That's what I like to call it.
Yeah, I mean, again, as long as you guys put up with us, we'll keep bugging you to promote stuff. So
absolutely, and I always appreciate it. I always appreciate it. So thank you.
Same here.
Yeah.
All right. So
all right, guys. Good to see you all.
All right,
I'm
folks.
gonna
Enjoy your Saturday.
Bye.
Okay. Take care, guys. Be well.